16th of June 2016, I uploaded a video that showcased one fact about every mission on GTA 3. Since then, it's had over 200,000 views and has inspired other YouTubers to create their own versions of this video, as well as specific facts for the PC version of the game, and even mission facts for other Grand Theft Auto games too. And with so much content out there already, surely there's nothing left to show in GTA 3. Well, get ready guys, here are some more mission facts and hacks. And I can almost guarantee you that there are some things in this video you will have never seen before. I hope you enjoy it. We start with the introduction, not a playable mission, but still worth mentioning. To be honest, I could talk so much about it that I might have to make a separate video to go over everything. But I have to pick at least one thing for this video, and it's this. During this mission, 3 sets of models are used for the Enforcer. Firstly, the standard model that is seen driving initially. Then we have the cutscene model, which is used for the scene on the bridge. The Securicar is still black and white, but now with a blue police logo. Then when the intro finishes and Give Me Liberty begins, this model is then swapped out for the destroyed model, which is still a silver colour with a blue logo. The developers stored the intact models inside the Callahan Bridge towards the end of the introduction, so the player couldn't see them. However, did you know that sometimes the top of the intact model can still be seen poking through the surface of the bridge, as you can see here? Even more rarely, this can happen with the Rumpo that's also included in the introduction, which you can see here. Okay, Give Me Liberty next. Again, lots I could say about this one. Next to the Enforcer wreck is a curious car. It's a Mafia Sentinel with a strange colour scheme. Green, black and silver. This colour of Mafia Sentinel doesn't appear anywhere else in the game, and also, this wasn't a car that was even included in the cutscene. Luigi's Girls follows on from Give Me Liberty. Now, have you ever wondered why this mission is called Luigi's Girls, when it's only about one girl, Misty? Well, the YouTuber Vadim M discovered that you originally had to pick up 2 girls during this mission, Misty and Trixie. But at some point in the game's development, this was reduced to just 1. Rockstar even talked about this mission in an article published in Hyper magazine. So the mission was changed, but its title was never updated. Okay, don't spank my bitch up. On the final game, the drug dealer is positioned here at the front of Portland Docks. But in some beta footage of the game, recorded and released by PS World magazine, we can see that this mission used to take place in a different spot. It was originally here, towards the back of the docks area. Drive Misty For Me is next. Did you know that upon completing this mission, it unlocks Marty Chonk's missions from the payphone near Joey's garage? The payphone only starts ringing at 9 AM though, and stops every day at 7 PM. Have you ever wondered what the inside of Misty's apartment looks like? Let's use a classic glitch to get inside. Well, predictably there's not much here. There's a black texture behind the doors, and there is actually this grey tunnel-like texture around the entrance, which I didn't expect. Speaking of Marty's missions, let's check them out now. Starting with the Crook, this mission and all the rest of Marty's missions, the Crook, the Thieves, the Wife and Her Lover, are adapted from the 1989 romantic crime drama titled The Cook, The Thief, His Wife and Her Lover. At the end of the Thieves, you're supposed to get out of the Sentinel and leave it there. And upon getting out, the doors will lock. However, you can get out of the car in such a way that leaves the door open. You'll still pass the mission, but you'll be able to get back in the car. The locked doors effect will still be active, so it's pretty funny to watch cops or gang members trying to get in. Also, the mission passed screen says you're given a reward of $3,000. But you'll only receive $2,000. There's a similar issue with the wife. It says you've received $2,000, but you'll actually be given $3,000. So maybe they just mixed these two up. On Her Lover, Marty reveals that he owes money to some guy that his wife is seeing. Instead of paying him, he decides to lure Carl to bitchin' dog food to deal with him. Of course, this doesn't go to plan. However, Marty owns 4 cars. The Perennial, the Sentinel, the Esperanto, and the Stallion. And he had us destroy the Perennial and the Esperanto. Maybe you could have paid Carl off with one of these cars. But oh well, it's too late for Marty now. Okay, let's finish Luigi's missions. Next is Pump Action Pimp. An interesting thing about this mission is that other gangs won't attack the Diablo during the mission. Outside this mission, if a Diablo drives into Chinatown for example, the Triads will shoot at them. The last of Luigi's missions is the Fuzz Ball. There's a good hack for this mission which you may have seen elsewhere, and that is to use a coach or a bus. There are 8 ladies, shall we say, to take to the ball, but you only have to get a minimum of 4 to pass the mission. Any more are a bonus. With a coach, you can pick up every single lady in one trip and drop them all off together, although they're not very good at all getting off the bus after one another. You'll receive a trophy for doing this in the definitive edition of the game. However, is this actually the fastest method? Handily, Rockstar placed some police cars at the old school hall, and they're always unlocked. The police cars at the police station in Portland only have, I think it's a 25% chance of being unlocked in comparison. Also, every time you get into a police car, you get 5 shotgun ammo. So you can take a police car, which is possibly the fastest 4-door car in the game. And even though you can't pick all the girls up in one go, it's still a fast method of completing the mission. During the mission, if you park a vehicle inside the doorway, then when the mission finishes, the doors to the old school hall won't close like usual. There's not a lot to explore though. You can't get past that black texture. Okay, Joey's missions now. Mike Life's last lunch is first. For obvious reasons, there's a big emphasis on parking Mike Forelli's car back exactly as it was. For example, if you damage it, you'll have to take it to paint and spray. And when you spray it, the colour won't change, it'll stay as it was. If you try to park the car backwards, you won't be able to proceed with the mission. It'll tell you to park it properly. However, you can still park it a little differently to how it was. Over to the left or the right somewhat. So the game does give you a little bit of leeway. On Farewell Chunky Lee Chong, you pretty much have to waste this guy on foot. He's in the precinct and there are bollards stopping you from driving in. However, you can use the jumping cars cheat to hop over the barriers. But it didn't skip the cutscene trigger or anything like that. So I wondered whether you could bypass the cutscene trigger by dropping down from above. So I flew a rhino up here, as you do, and dropped right down almost on top of Lee Chong. But the cutscene still played, so despite being pretty funny, it actually didn't work. However, did you know that if we don't waste Chunky quick enough, he'll escape in one of several perennials? Well, let's put a bomb in each of them and see what happens. And there you go, a different way of completing this mission. This is something that will also get you a trophy on the definitive edition. On Van Heist, if you activate the Ped's Riot cheat, an NPC can actually pull the driver out of the Securicar. You can get in it, but because you haven't damaged it, you can't progress the mission. But even stranger, the Securicar is now damage proof, in addition to being bulletproof and fireproof during this mission. So it seems that it's damage proof up until you first interact with it. Sadly, you don't seem to be able to store the damage proof property though. Similarly, on Cipriani's Chauffeur, the Mafia Sentinel is damage proof during the cutscene. We can see this in action if we park a Rhino in front of Joey's garage and watch Claude try to bash it out of the way. Also on this mission, it's been reported by other people that the Triads in the laundry are indestructible until they come out through the front doors. But is this true? Well, there's a gap above the door and you can try to shoot them through it. Or you can even launch a grenade or fire a rocket launcher through there too. And they do indeed live. But let's use a glitch to go inside and do some further tests. As it turns out, they are not in fact invincible. They're immune to bullets, fire and explosions, but not melee attacks. And they can be wasted via punches or the baseball bat. So there you go. Rockstar probably never thought we'd be able to get in here, so there was no need to make them immune to melee attacks. However, we now cannot get out, so we can't see how the mission might have progressed without these guys. It probably would have just soft-locked anyway. Lastly, for Cipriani's Chauffeur, I've got a mission hack for you. You can get a bonus of $2,000 if you waste all the triads that come after you outside the laundrette. Similarly, on Dead Skunk in the Trunk, if you take out the Farrelly brothers, you'll get a bonus of $10,000 for taking out both cars. $5,000 per brother. I also wanted to try and see what would happen if a pedestrian tried to jack one of the Sentinels, like we did with Van Heist earlier. So I switched on the Ped's Riot cheat and attempted to lure some Peds down, as none actually spawned near the cafe. However, this didn't seem to work, as the Sentinels may technically be parked rather than being in traffic. But I did catch what looks like the annual Liberty City Marathon in action. Oh well, make that a triathlon, I guess. And where do the Sentinels go when you finish the mission without destroying them? Well, as soon as you pass the mission, they completely lose interest in you and drive off. Lastly, the Manana on this mission has a different sounding horn to the regular Manana. Check this out. Lastly for Joey is the Getaway. Now I had read online that there are certain vehicles that aren't allowed for this mission, despite having enough seats for Claude and the 3 robbers. These are the coach and the bus. And I looked for a bus for so long and didn't find one. So here's the coach in action. The message on the screen says to get something less conspicuous. Okay, so conspicuous cars aren't allowed, right? Well, I would argue that a police car is pretty conspicuous, and that's allowed. And also the ambulance. Likely any emergency services vehicle that can seat 4 people. Okay, so what about a car that's on fire? Oh, the flames disappear and it reverts to just 1 crash away from exploding. Just the coach and the bus then. Also, have you ever wondered what's inside the garage that the robbers come out of? Well, we can use the same glitch as before to take a look. The space is quite small actually, barely even big enough for a vehicle, and yet it's behind a garage door. The robbers haven't spawned in yet, and only do so once you trigger the cutscene. When you do pick them up like usual, one of them says, "Get to the bank on the main drag."
Get to the bank on the main drag.
This is actually a reference to an earlier phase of the game's development, where there would have been one long road going right through Portland, like a main drag strip. However, at some point there was a row of buildings placed in between to break it up, with an alleyway in the middle. But this quote still harks back to an earlier time. Lastly for this mission, let's check out the inside of the bank. There's a red texture on the floor, but all the walls just mirror what's on the exterior of the building. The space is quite small too. You can't go off to either side. And I have no idea how the bank robbers got in here with me too. Okay, we've got 3 missions for Tony next, starting with taking out the laundry. As I followed one of the vans around, it crashed into the back of a taxi. The taxi sustained damage while the Mr. Wongs didn't. So potentially, the vans are damage proof before the player interacts with them, just like the Securicar in Van Heist. However, even if you use the PED's riot cheat to enter one, the damage proofing will disappear. Also, this is perhaps the only time you'll see Mr. Wongs driving around Liberty City, with a potential exception being the Vigilante and Firefighter missions, which we'll discuss later. Speaking of the Mr. Wongs vans, the only place you can usually find one is around the back of the laundrette. However, during the next mission, the pickup, it will never spawn. This is likely because it would get in the way of the events of the mission, so it gets despawned whenever this mission is active. Lastly for Tony, for now, we have Salvatore's Called a Meeting, where you have to pick up Luigi and Joey, then head to Salvatore's Gentleman's Club. When you pick up Joey, have you ever noticed that you can see his character model spawn in at the edge of the screen? This is supposed to happen off screen, but either the spawn point or the camera angle was a little off, and you can see him appear out of thin air. Also, when you get to Salvatore's, you have to go inside the garage to pass the mission. However, the limo doesn't have to be the only car in there. Right, let's take one of the Mafia Sentinels and put that in. Then we'll take a Triad fish van and put that in alongside. That's 4 so far. And hopefully we can fit another fish van in front of the one that's parked next to the Sentinel. Now, let's get the stretch and see if we can still squeeze it in. And there we go. That is 6 vehicles in the carriage right there. The first mission for Salvatore himself is Chaperone, where we take Maria to a party in Atlantic Keys. During the cutscene, there's a mafia guy who stands near the door, but you don't really see him, because he's obscured from view either by the other characters or by the camera angles used. You can see him at one point where the camera goes right through his head. Otherwise, you'd never know he was there. It was like Rockstar changed their minds about having him in the cutscene, but didn't just remove him for some reason. Okay, a bit of a hack for you guys is that you can easily take a cheetah from this mission, which can be used for Turismo, and can also be saved in your garage as a generally useful car. Strangely on this mission, Maria won't get out of the stretch before the party. After the party though, she'll get in and out of the stretch with Claude and can even get into another vehicle. This is a bit pointless however, as you need to be in the stretch to complete the mission. In my last video, we also saw how blocking the road to stop one of the Securicars turning up actually resulted in 2 extra SWAT vans turning up to crash the party, which was really weird to see. Completing Chaperone gives us access to 2 more Tony missions, starting with Triads and Tribulations, where an all-out war has begun between the Mafia and the Triads. During this mission, the police won't get involved. You can even see the Mafia shooting at police officers on the street, and they just run away. Also, you don't need to enter the Triad fish factory to waste the last guy. You can just stand on top of this little hill or stand on top of a car and deal with him from afar. Speaking of the fish factory, we come to Blowfish now, where you destroy the Triad fish factory with a bomb concealed in a Trashmaster. When it explodes, we get to see inside the building. We can see debris, as well as the remnants of a crate with Turtlehead Fishing Company on it. Another piece of crude yet fantastic naming by Rockstar. I honestly don't know whether the term Turtlehead is just a British thing, or whether it's used overseas. But I'm sure you could look it up if you haven't heard of it before. Anyway, have you ever wondered what the inside of the factory looks like before the explosion? Well, wonder no more, as we're about to step inside. Firstly, when the building is destroyed, you're walking around on a raised plinth. But here, we're walking around at ground level. Maybe it's just me, but it feels bigger when it's intact. And also the roof is quite pointy at the top, while the destroyed model is a bit more curved. Then we have two more Salvatore missions. The first is cutting the grass. You're supposed to follow Curly Bob to the docks, but as you'll probably know, you can take a taxi down to Luigi's club and take him there yourself. But did you know that you can use any vehicle that can be used to start a taxi side mission? So you can also use a cabbie. And if you've already completed 100 taxi missions at this point in the game, you can even use the Borgnine. Aside from this, if you've ever tried hanging around the back of Luigi's club in the hope of seeing where Curly spawns, you won't see him. This is because if you're around the back of the club, he'll spawn by the front doors instead. And if you're stationed at the front, he'll come out of the service door at the rear. This is the same thing Salvatore does during the mission Sayonara Salvatore, which we'll get to later in the video. I also wanted to check out where Curly goes at the end of the mission, because usually you just waste him so fast you can never see where he runs to. Well, he just runs around without any clear direction, to be honest, just around the docks. Okay, Bomb the Base Act 1. Not too much we can say about this mission, as it's just a cutscene. During the cutscene, however, we can see part of one of the paintings on Salvatore's wall. Have you ever looked closely at them? This one actually shows an old screenshot of the game, featuring a Mafia Sentinel in the tunnels. I'm not too sure about this one, so let me know if you recognise it. This one depicts the L train here in Portland. And I think this one is a shot of the scenery outside Salvatore's house. Okay, Bomb the Base Act 2, Part 1. Another mission that's just a cutscene, where 8-Ball tells you to come back when you have 100 grand, even if you already have 100 grand. We're going to use the ghost cart glitch, that we'll come to later in the video, to get into 8-Ball's place. There's not much here, of course, other than the backdrop for the cutscene, which is a wall of different tools. You can actually see this texture at 8-Ball's bomb shop on Staunton Island as well. Now we come to Bomb the Base Act 2, Part 2. The full mission where you and 8-Ball destroy the cartel-run Spank factory aboard a cargo ship in Portland docks. On the ship, you can see the brand name Les Cargo, or Les Cargo. Now, this isn't just some kind of French for the cargo. It's actually a play on the word les cargo, or les cargo, which is French for snails. Last of the main storyline missions in Portland is Last Requests, which sees Salvatore asking you to take a cheetah to the Crusher in Harwood, only for Maria to intervene and tell you that Salvatore has betrayed you, and the cheetah is a trap. The cheetah is in fact rigged with a bomb and will activate upon entering the car and starting the engine. But can we avoid the explosion and keep the car? Let's push it back to our garage and store it. Once it's in the garage, we can go ahead and finish the mission, then come back to find it still there. So we've saved it from the mission, but it's still rigged with a bomb. Luckily, we can get in and out just fast enough to get far away from the explosion and take less damage. Then we can keep the car, not that it has any special properties. Or we can actually take it to the Crusher in Harwood and pretend to fulfill the original criteria for this mission, doing what Salvatore originally asked of us. Before we move on to Staunton Island, we have the phone missions from El Burro. Instead of taking your position on the starting grid, you can drive right through the cheaters. And as long as you touch one of them, the mission will begin, giving you a head start over the competition. Also, if you enter the blue marker on foot, you'll get the message, "This is a car race. You need a car, fool." I Scream, You Scream is the second mission for El Burro. When you pick up the briefcase in Harwood, it actually doesn't spawn in the same place as the Borgnine, just behind it. I thought that this could have been an oversight from the developers, but no, fair play to them. When you pick this up, the Mr. Whoopie will spawn, and it always spawns in St. Mark's, so it's a good idea to do this mission before the Mafia turn against you. Then St. Mark's becomes a lot more dangerous, and 3 of the 4 El Burro missions take place, at least somewhat, in St. Mark's. Watch out too, the Mr. Whoopie doesn't seem to have the best brakes. If you don't waste the Mafia guys with the bomb in the Mr. Whoopie as intended, you can attract their attention and they'll follow you pretty much anywhere in Portland. They just don't stop running after you. There are exceptions though, like running up the steps to the L train station here in Chinatown. The Mafia won't chase you up there. It makes for an interesting way to complete the mission if you can entice them to follow you, then go to a precarious spot on the map and watch them waste themselves. I've got a good mission hack for you in Trial by Fire, which is a Rampage style mission where you have to waste some triads using only a flamethrower. If you go over to the basketball court here, you can see a big group of triads, allowing you to get several of them at once, making the mission easier. And since you can't sprint with a flamethrower, you can jump your way around, which is a bit faster than jogging. Lastly, we have Big and Veiny. Did you know that you don't have to pick up every single stack of magazines? It's okay to miss a few as long as you still have enough time to get to the finish. You can take this to the extreme and take a massive shortcut by turning around at the start and picking up the trail of magazines at the edge of Chinatown. When you take the van back to XXX Mags in Red Light District, you can see these NPCs come out of the shop. These are actually unique NPCs and can't be seen anywhere else, even though they only appear for these brief few seconds. Patriot Playground is another Portland-based side mission, which sees you collect checkpoints around Portland Beach. To trigger it, you have to enter the Patriot that's parked near the Super Save. However, you can actually use any Patriot you like. As long as you have a Patriot and park it in this spot, you're good to go. For example, if I push this Patriot out of the way, then get in it and drive back to the parking spot, the mission launches. To compare this to Gripped, which we might as well discuss now, all you need to do is drive a Patriot near where the mission usually starts, and it will begin straight away. You don't have to get out of your vehicle and get back in, like you do with Patriot Playground. It just starts automatically. There are also 2 RC car side missions in Portland. the only island to have 2 of these missions, where Staunton Island and Shoreside Vale have just 1 apiece. First we have Diablo Destruction. Your reward for the RC side missions depends on how many cars you destroy. You get 1,000 per car. So in this case, I destroyed 14 Diablo Stallions and received $14,000. Secondly, we have Mafia Massacre. Did you know that you don't have to blow up the cars driving in traffic during the RC missions? And that parked vehicles also count. Mafia Massacre is a good example of this, as you have the Mafia Sentinel that's parked here. And there are also 2 at Salvatore's house as well. Then there's the Import-Export Garage too. Now, there are some pretty rare cars that are required for this. Vehicles that only spawn rarely in traffic. However, an easier way to try to encounter them is to do vigilante or firefighter missions. For example, here's a criminal in a Mr. Whoopee. We can just take his ice cream truck and take it over to the Import-Export Garage. Easy. You also might want to try this method when trying to acquire the seldom seen bus too. There's also the Securicar Garage, but this doesn't actually count towards 100% completion. Still, let's cover it quickly. What we have to do is deliver 10 Securicars to this garage here, for them to be cracked, and each time we deliver one, we get a cash reward. The easiest way to do this is to complete the Import-Export Garage, then simply spawn a Securicar there and take it over to the Securicar Garage. Rinse and repeat. And that's Portland done. We begin Staunton Island with Sayonara Salvatore from Asuka. In this mission, Claude needs to waste Salvatore as payback for betraying him and offering him as a bargaining chip between the Mafia and the cartel. As I mentioned in my last video, you can get really creative with this mission. We even saw how Salvatore can steal a rhino, and he ended up reversing into the sea at Portland Beach and passing the mission for us. But also, did you know that if Salvatore's car gets stuck somewhere, the game can respawn it elsewhere? In this case, he's stuck on the beach. And keep your eye on the green dot on the mini-map here, as you're about to notice something that I didn't in that moment. The green dot disappears from this spot on the map and reappears back near Salvatore's Gentleman's Club. Once I realised, I ran back up to find Salvatore and the Mafia guys trying to get back into the compound. But then they drove off the hillside and crashed down near 8ball's place. The Mafia Sentinel was upside down, and when I looked away for a second, the game despawned it again and respawned it far away. I ran to grab the Banshee from Capital Autos to try and see where it had gone, and while I was driving there, the mission passed. So Salvatore and co must have driven themselves into the water or something. Now we have Under Surveillance. Due to the actions in the past mission, the Mafia are now keeping tabs on us in Staunton Island. Let's see what Asuka has to say about it.
I like that in a man. This is my brother, Kenji.
Asuka has a little job for you, but when you're done, drop by my casino and we can talk.
Just like Kenji, always trying to play with my toys. My police source indicates that the Mafia are watching our interests around the city in a bid to track you down. We cannot continue our operations until they are dealt with. Take out these spying fools and end this vendetta once and for all.
Bearing that in mind, the antagonists in this mission were completely changed in the PC version of the game. Instead, in the cutscene, Asuka talks about the CIA instead.
Just like Kenji, always trying to play with my toys. My police source indicates that the FBI has mounted a surveillance operation at key locations around the city. It is too late to contact anyone and avoid incrimination. Take out these spying cops, but be careful. They're bound to have backup.
On Paparazzi Purge, you never really get too close to the boat. you either do the mission normally and destroy it with a police boat, or take the speedrunner approach and destroy it with a rocket launcher from near Asuka's condo. Therefore, you never see who's driving it. If we zoom in, we can see that it looks like the Ped, who wears a blue shirt and trousers, with a baseball cap and glasses. This guy. And as I said before, you usually destroy the boat pretty quickly either way. But what happens if you don't? Well, the guy goes all the way around to the harbour in Portland Beach. By the way, if you get close enough to the speeder during the chase, you can see that there is no one driving it. When he gets back to the jetty near where we began the mission, he'll actually get out of his boat before running up the steps and into a stallion that's been spawned there as part of the mission. I swear I have never seen this part of the mission in my entire life before, as I've always just blown up the boat before he can get anywhere near his car. On Payday 4A, I had a rare glitch occur where I answered this phone here, but then the blue arrow wouldn't disappear from it and move on to the next phone. So I was just stuck here. I couldn't answer the same phone again, so I had no choice but to let the time run out and fail the mission. How strange. Okay, Two-Faced Tanner, the mission that's famous for mocking the protagonist from the Driver series of games. There's the mission name, which references Tanner. Asuka calls him strangely animated, referring to the way Tanner runs in Driver 2. She also says he's pretty much useless out of his car, referencing that Tanner can't use weapons or attack anyone in Driver 2. Then there's the appearance of the character, which is obviously like Tanner. And finally, Rockstar gave him their female running animation, so he runs like this. Also, Tanner's Esperanto is another one of those cars that is damage proof, before the player can interact with it. We can see this if we spawn a rhino, then damage it with bullets to fill up the damage meter. We can jump in once Tanner's gotten out, and here we go. A damage-proof Esperanto. Sadly, you can't keep it in your garage though. Now we begin Kenji's missions, Kanbu Bust Out being the first. During this mission, you have to acquire a police car, then rig it with a bomb and blow up the wall of the jail cell. However, you can steal the police car and rig it with a bomb before the mission begins. And when you enter your cop car, the game tells you to go straight to the police station. To finish this mission, you have to lose your wanted level. You can just go to pay and spray, but that's a bit out of the way. Instead, we can grab a police bribe on the way out of the station here. Then, there's another police bribe located up here. Now we only have 1 star left to lose, and by the time we reach the dojo, we'll have just lost it naturally. Done. Also on Kanbu Bust Out, you can't use a car that already has another bomb in it. And that's because you can't have 2 different types of bomb in one car. And if you try equipping a standard car with a bomb and destroying the jail cell wall, it does not work. It'll only work with the police car. In the eponymous mission Grand Theft Auto, you have to collect 3 cars and take them back to a garage near Pay and Spray. They're all in a unique red colour that you can only find during this mission. If you're into collecting exclusive cars from the various missions, you might want to get all of these. All 4 of them. Yeah, technically, there are 4 cars to collect here. The Cheetah and the Infernus make 2, and then there are 2 variants of the Stinger. One with a roof, and one without. You'll just have to make sure that you don't pass the mission before acquiring both variants, as only 1 Stinger spawns per mission attempt.
You carpet muncher!
Deal steal involves hijacking a deal between the cartel and the Yardies. which takes place in the car park at the hospital. But when do the cartel spawn? If you try to go there straight away, they're not present. Okay, what if we show up in the correct car, but without the Yakuza gang member? Still nothing there. They only show up once we have the right car and we've collected our contact. But what happens if you then show up in a normal car? Well, the mission fails because we've been spotted. Interestingly, one of the cartel cruisers didn't drive off, it just sat there. If you manage to complete the mission without the Yakuza guy getting wasted, which, believe me, is a rare occurrence, what happens when you get back to the casino? Well, he just walks into this staircase for a while. Cool. Shima is up next, where you have to collect 3 briefcases of protection money, which isn't as straightforward as it may sound. This mission is famous for being the only time that Diablo is seen on Staunton Island. Now, is that true? Well, in a sense, yes. It's the only time that Diablo is seen on foot on Staunton Island. However, it is possible to see a Diablo stallion drive over the Callahan Bridge to Staunton Island. So this can occur naturally during gameplay too. If you follow the Diablo stallion around, it may even go into another gang's territory. And here, the Yakuza started shooting at them. But unlike what happens between the Portland gangs, the Diablo did not frantically drive off. Instead, he just continued to obey the laws of the road. And this did not go well for him. Also, nice job of not doing anything there, police officer. Also, during the mission, BJ's Deli gets vandalised by the Diablos. Aside from the fact that the name BJ's is likely intentional from Rockstar, what are the citizens of Liberty City going to do if they can't go to BJ's Deli? Well, fortunately, there's another BJ's Deli just across the road here, which is not vandalised. Man, this is worse than Starbucks, or Greg's if you're from the UK like me. By the way, you can actually see into the inside of BJ's Deli, where the guy in the cutscene comes out and shouts at you. There's not much in there, just a small space with a backdrop. The last of Kenji's missions is Smackdown, where you have to waste as many yardie dealers as possible. To pass the mission, you have to get rid of 8 at least. However, for every additional one you get, you'll receive an extra $1,000. Most of the time, you'll probably get somewhere between 8 and 10 yardie dealers. But how many could you get in theory? Well, the mission seems to work like this. Each time you waste a yardie dealer, 2 more will spawn in the city. But after a certain amount of time, each dealer will disappear if you don't get to them quickly enough. To stop the mission going on forever, the window of time you have to reach each dealer gets shorter as the mission goes on. For a good attempt, I feel like you need to get lucky and have more dealers spawn over this side of town, near Liberty Campus. I found that the distance between the spawn points around here was generally shorter than elsewhere. On my best attempt while recording footage for this video, I was able to get a score of 17. And it could have perhaps been 18 if I hadn't crashed near the end. Still, a good attempt, I think. On a final note for this mission, the yardies can spawn in some strange places sometimes. This guy spawned in the cartel compound that features in Liberator. You can't even get in there without a cartel cruiser. Ray Machowski's missions are up next, starting with Silence the Sneak. In my last video, we saw how McCaffrey, the police officers and the Sentinel all don't spawn until you've destroyed the Witness Protection House. If you managed to gain access to the garage before this, it's empty. Also, have you ever been able to look closely at McCaffrey during this mission? Well, he doesn't have a unique NPC model. He shares a model with one of the regular pets, and it's this one. Arms Shortage features Phil Cassidy, the same Phil as the one who featured in the sequel, Vice City. On GTA VC, we see how Phil lost his arm. On GTA 3, he claims he lost it in Nicaragua, but we can see this isn't true. Also, in Vice City, he loses his right arm in the self-caused accident. However, on GTA 3, he's actually missing his left arm instead. Some years ago, I made a video showcasing the rhino that features in this mission. Here, you have the opportunity to access a rhino fairly early in the game, earlier than you should. Back then, the only method I knew was to push it all the way to the garage. Since then, a new method was found, where you block access to both doors and warp inside. I tried this before without success, but I was determined to do it for this video. I think the problem was that when people show videos of this, they often show this trick working almost immediately. But as you can see, that is not the case. I was trying for ages before I got this to work. As I say, you have to block the doors to the rhino, and then keep pressing triangle to attempt to get in it, either from the front or the back, and finally it worked. The first thing to mention about this rhino is that it isn't like other rhinos on the game. It's still bulletproof, but it's not explosion proof, whereas all the other ones are. That means when you destroy other cars, you can destroy the rhino too. However, if we store this rhino in our garage, it gains the explosion-proof property. This now becomes a really handy vehicle, which we'll come to use again in the video. Also, there are quite a few weapon pickups we can take advantage of during Arms Shortage. There is a rocket launcher and a Molotov cocktail on these containers here, and there's also some body armour hidden between them. Also, there are 3 free weapons that are near Phil. After the mission, these weapons for sale will spawn here. But during the mission, these are free, so take advantage and grab them. And in fact, we can use it right now. A quick mission hack for you. If you destroy the Bobcat in Evidence Dash with the Rhino, you can pass the mission right away. What you're meant to do is crash into it a bunch of times so that it drops 6 pieces of evidence, which you need to collect. You can actually see these pieces of evidence in the back of the Bobcat, and each time you crash into it, they deplete. Also, there's a mission fail condition that you might not be aware of. If the Bobcat falls into the water, you'll fail the mission, as the evidence will be washed up all over Liberty City. Lastly, if the Bobcat flips over at any point, you'll get a message saying that it's a decoy, and another one will spawn. Gone Fishing comes after Evidence Dash, where you go over to Portland Rock and chase a guy in a unique boat. But before we discuss that, one cool little thing is that when the fish come up to the surface, they remain there outside the cutscene during the mission. We can see them here, and they seem to be the same models used as the ones that rain down when the Triad Fish Factory explodes. So yeah, the boat. It's named the Ghost, but it's incorrectly named the Ghost Missing in the game itself. According to GTA fandom, this is the reason. The reason the name Ghost Missing appears in the PS2 version of GTA 3 is because a valid GXT name is not assigned to the boat, so it displays its game name Ghost with the word missing. It's a modified Predator, the police boat, without the guns on the front. This makes sense as the antagonist in this mission is Ray's partner. Therefore, he's a cop who likely took a police boat and modified it. A few years ago, I made a video on this too, stating that you could push it back to your garage on Staunton Island, but upon storing it and reopening the garage, the game would crash. But times have changed and we now have emulators to use. And strangely, on PC SX2, storing it in your garage and opening the door does not cause the game to crash anymore. However, you can still cause the game to crash if you now try and blow up the boat. Lastly, in the game's files, the colour of the ghost is named Police Car Blue. So this could have been the original colour of the cop cars on the game, before they were changed to white and black. Although it doesn't look exactly the same. Also on Gone Fishing, instead of going near the boat to trigger the cutscene, you can also shoot it from afar with the sniper rifle, and that will also trigger the cutscene. The final mission for Ray, for now, is Plaster Blaster. McCaffrey is not dead, and he is being transported from the hospital in an ambulance. If you crash into the ambulance, the plaster cast will be ejected, then you have to damage it some more to pass the mission. Getting the ambulance to eject the cast is pretty easy, so I never saw where the ambulance heads to. It spawns at the hospital and travels to the police station, which actually isn't that far. Guarding the police station are 2 enforcers, and some guys on foot. One to the front entrance and one to the side. However, the strange thing is that these guys will shoot at you, even if you don't have a wanted level. If you destroy the ambulance from far away, you'll get the message that it's a decoy, and another one will spawn from the hospital. You'll fail the mission if the ambulance successfully delivers McCaffrey to the police station. So, to destroy the cast, you have to run over it with a vehicle or use an explosive weapon. Attempting to use bullets or fire will trigger different messages at the bottom of the screen. The last thing to mention is that when the cast ejects from the ambulance, it can do so pretty erratically. Check this out. On this attempt at the mission, McCaffrey was launched from the ambulance while it was passing under this bridge, and he actually got stuck in it. Look at this, have you ever seen this happen? He's stuck in there. Even shooting at it with a rocket launcher didn't knock it down. It's well and truly stuck. We then head over to Donald Love, whose first mission is Liberator. Now, in my last video we saw how we can keep the garage doors in the cartel compound open by placing rhino tanks inside them. And we also saw how you can jump on top of a rhino and glitch through the top of one of these garages. So what else can we say about this mission? Well, a hack for this mission is that it's easy to waste the cartel gang members by using a flamethrower and shooting it through the wall. You're nice and safe while the cartel members somehow get hit by the fire that has gone right through the wall. At the end of the mission, you can see the old Oriental gentleman enter Donald Love's building. However, he doesn't despawn during the cutscene, it's just after. So if you're quick enough, you can look to one side and see him disappear during normal gameplay. Waka-Gashira Wipeout is the next mission, where you have to waste Kenji, but make it look as if the cartel are to blame. With this in mind, one of the mission fail conditions is if you waste all the Yakuza gang members before Kenji himself. This is because there will be no witnesses to the fact that a cartel cruiser just ran over the Waka-Gashira. Oh, by the way, in my original one fact about every mission video, I mentioned that Donald Love quotes his former mentor in the cutscene, but I never showed the clip from Vice City that I referenced. So here you go, consider this rectified.
Nothing drives down real estate prices like a good old-fashioned gang war, apart from an outbreak of plague, but that might be going too far in this case.
Tommy, this is Donald Love. Donald, this here is Tommy Vercetti, the latest gunslinger to come to these parts. Now, Donald, you just shut up and listen, and you might learn something. Now, nothing brings down real estate prices quicker than a good old-fashioned gang war. Except maybe a disaster like a biblical plague or something, but that may be going too far in this case. You getting this down, you four-eyed prick?
There's also one particular Yakuza guy here who can jack cars in the multi-story car park. Here he steals a Rumpo, but then just crashes it into a wall over and over again. Another time he stole a Rumpo and actually went off the ramp and drove off the top of the car park. A few seconds later, I received a 3-star wanted level, indicating that the Rumpo had probably blown up and taken him with it. And yeah, apparently if you waste any of the Yakuza guys before Kenji, you get a 3-star wanted level. So I tried luring all the other guys away from Kenji without wasting them, and then just went for it, and it worked. However, there's a guy that stands right beside Kenji who's really difficult to avoid usually. But in taking both him and Kenji out at the same time, I didn't receive the wanted level. So maybe this particular guy just doesn't count. A drop in the ocean follows Waka-Gashira Wipeout. In this mission, we need to follow a dodo plane that drops packages into the sea. This is the only mission on the game where you're intentionally given a 5-star wanted level. On other missions, you might work your way up to 5 stars, but in this scenario, each package you collect gives you an extra wanted level. There are 6 packages, but you don't get a 6th wanted level at this point in the game. This means that this is a good opportunity to get an FBI car, which is generally a good car and also one that's needed for the emergency vehicle crane in Portland. Other than that, it's also the only time in the game that you will see the LCPD in a police boat. The cops want to get their hands on those packages too, so they'll rival you for them. What happens if you let the cops get the last package? Well, we failed the mission of course, but let's see where they go. Turned out that they go over to these cliffs near Shoreside Vale and then just start going around in circles. Excuse me, could you not? I mean, they just nearly capsized me. And, have you ever noticed how the Predator and the police helicopter are still white and blue? The original LCPD colours. Only the police car and the Enforcer were changed to white and black. What if we let the police spawn but then take the last package anyway? Similarly, the police just sailed around in circles, this time near the place where the mission takes place. Grand Theft Aero follows this mission. We need to go to Shoreside Vale and check out an aeroplane in a hangar. But oops, the cartel have beaten us to it and stolen what was in the plane. The hack for this mission is that, like on Liberator, you can use a flamethrower to waste the cartel through the walls, so you don't have to put yourself in any danger. Easy. There are also these guys around who are airport staff, I believe. Anyway, take a closer look at the blood splatter on the floor here. It's the same texture as the one that's used in the jail cell during Kanbu Bust Out. What you're now meant to do is head over to the construction site in Fort Staunton and fight your way through a load more cartel before ascending the tower that's being built. But what we can do instead is take the dodo from the hangar and just fly it right to the construction site, meaning we don't have to run the risk of getting all beat up. After the mission, the Yakuza will have taken over the construction site. There will be a Yakuza stinger located just here which you can take and easily reverse through the opening behind it. This stinger will always spawn here from now on, but won't be in exactly the same position. When it spawns in normal gameplay, it'll be a little off to the left, meaning you can't just drive straight back through the gap. In Escort Service, we need to accompany a Securicar on a journey over to Shoreside Vale. Usually you get ambushed by a load of cartel gang members along the way. However, you don't actually need to stay in range of the Securicar. Therefore, you could go straight to the destination and wait there. I have read online that doing this prevents the cartel ambushes from spawning, but is that the case? Well, I went to the endpoint and waited for about 10 minutes. The most interesting thing that happened during this time was that an ambulance disappeared into thin air. So I went back to check on its progress and it had only got to here. This is taking a while. Then I went back to the warehouse and waited some more, and again, nothing happened really. So I went back across the bridge again and managed to see a blown up cartel cruiser here. It's probably one of the ones that spawned during the mission, but how and why did it get up here? Eventually I caught up with it as it came out of the tunnel, and I still had to deal with a few gang members, on foot and in cars. All in all, this was a fun experiment, but it took way longer than just doing the mission normally. Probably not recommended. Then of course we have Decoy, where we must take out that same Securicar and lead the cops away from the warehouse. During this mission, there are 3 enforcers that are located close to the warehouse, where the mission begins in full. And it might be these parked enforcers that produce the weird thing I'm going to show next. While this mission is active, the enforcer can actually spawn in traffic. This never happens elsewhere in the game. Not on any other missions or in normal gameplay, at least to my knowledge. The enforcer is only ever seen when you have a wanted level of 3 or 4 stars, and is also parked at the police station in Staunton Island. I even encountered this glitch twice. Once when I just left Donald Love's and another time on Shoreside Vale. It's really strange and it's not something I've ever seen before in all my years of playing this game. Then it happens twice when I'm recording this video. The hack for this mission is to head to the airport. That's because no police will spawn on the runways aside from the helicopters, which are easy enough to evade. The final mission for Donald Love is Love's disappearance. The last time, chronologically, we ever see Donald Love in Grand Theft Auto. Rockstar have never explained his disappearance to this day. Anyway, this mission is just a cutscene, so there's not much to say about it. But I did find one interesting thing. During the cutscene, Claude enters the rooftop garden to find Donald as usual, but no one's there. As he examines the empty penthouse, he stumbles upon a mysterious box that Donald Love had supposedly used to store packages he hired Claude to steal previously, which is now empty. You'd think that this box would be there for this cutscene only, right? Well, let's go back in time. Back to before I'd done any of Donald's missions, and used the Rhino to fly up to the rooftop. As you can see, the empty box is actually here all the time. That means it has been present during every mission and every cutscene before Donald Love's disappearance. The cutscenes for Liberator, Waka-Gashira Wipeout, A Drop in the Ocean, Grand Theft Auto, and Escort Service all obscure the box from view. With the camera angles used, all the cutscenes just take place at different parts of the rooftop garden. However, on the mission Decoy, the mission before this, we can actually see it right there. Then we get to the final mission for Ray Machowski, Marked Man. Ray needs to get to the airport, but the CIA have the bridge under surveillance. So we need to find another way of getting to the airport. So, just how many ways can you get Ray to the airport? Perhaps the most obvious one is via the tunnels. At least that's what I did when I was younger. Essentially, the strategy is to get a decent car, head down to the entrance to the Porter Tunnel, which is located near the hospital, and just drive over to Francis International Airport. Perhaps the second most obvious way is to use the subway. The entrance to the subway is wide enough to get a car through, so you can just drive onto the tracks. From here it's pretty straightforward. Just drive on the tracks and watch out for any oncoming trains. You'll come out right near the airport, up a flight of steps close to a statue that also resides here.
Here's a kid in the lockup.
The third method that people generally use is to grab a bulletproof car and just go across the bridge, so the CIA can't take you out. To do this, we can use the Rhino we took from Arms Shortage earlier in the video. You can just drive across and take out any CIA guys you like with the turret. The only thing that can slow you down is the bridge raising, but still, there's plenty of time to get there. You could also take a normal car onto the bridge and snipe all the CIA guys from afar. That would probably work too. Next we have the Dodo. If you can find a good spot among the traffic of Staunton Island to take off, you can fly over to Francis International and drop Ray off in time for his flight. In hindsight, I actually think taking off from the Calhoun Bridge might be better than the spot I picked at Bedford Point, but still, it worked. This was something I was actually trying to accomplish when I recorded the original one fact about every mission video, but I failed, and instead, I used it to showcase that if you fail the mission and retry using the same car, Ray just refuses to get in. Anyway, so I've seen other people do these things before, so I wanted to try and think of a method that I'd never seen anyone do. And I thought, instead of driving on the subway, could you actually take the subway train? I had no idea whether I'd have enough time, or whether Ray would even get on it, or everything else, but I gave it a shot. My plan was to drive down to the subway station near the hospital and catch the train. I timed it so I'd get there just as the train was about to leave, so I didn't waste any time waiting for the train to depart. But the big question was, would Ray get on board the train? And the answer is yes. Well, I think. He got on and then just seemed to disappear. My guy was too quick to grab the last seat there. So, everything was going well. I was a bit nervous about the time limit, but still. We passed through Chinatown and then we arrived back in Staunton Island. Something had gone wrong. I'd picked the wrong subway station. Turns out that the station I needed to go to was the one at Bedford Point instead. That's the one that goes to Shoreside. So here we go again. I travelled up to the other station and got aboard the train. Sadly, I didn't time it as well. The train only just arrived when we got there, so we had to wait a while for it to leave. When we arrived at Shoreside, we only had 40 seconds to make Ray's flight. So I tried to go as fast as I could, but Ray couldn't keep up, and sadly, we ran out of time. If we're going to do this, it has to be really optimised. Now I know that the game will keep a car in memory if you ditch it and leave a door open. So my plan was to leave an Infernus on the platform, so we could drive to the airport once the train had arrived. So I parked the car down here and went back to try again. Here is the final run. I head down to the mission marker, exit the cutscene and run up to the car, driving away as quickly as I dare while Ray was still getting in. I almost get taken out by a landstalker before dodging some busy traffic, and even a police car switching lanes for no reason. I head down the stairs to the platform trying to be as quick as possible, just in time for the train to arrive. Despite what I said earlier, I timed it like this because I ran into some issues where the train's doors would close sooner than usual when I tried to get there a little bit later, and Ray just kept running into the train and dying. So, to avoid that, I had to time my journey to arrive just as the train was also arriving. We got on it, and Ray did his usual disappearing act, probably shoving an old lady off a disabled seat somewhere. And then we just sat back and enjoyed the cinematic camera angles for a little while. The timer disappears from the screen when you're on the train, so you're never sure what it'll be when you arrive. So, yeah, fingers crossed that the Infernus is still there too. And it is. Where's Ray? There he is. Okay, let's go. We drive up and out of the station. Under 20 seconds left on the timer. Down the steps, turn the corner along the road and into the blue marker with just 9 seconds left on the clock. Man, that was crazy. Oh, I also tried to go there by boat, but this has so far been unsuccessful. Also, isn't it just the ultimate troll that Ray gives you a bulletproof Patriot right after this mission? Like, cheers mate, that would have been perfect for going across the bridge. 3 more missions for Asuka now, starting with Bait, where you have to lure 3 lots of cartel gangsters to a Yakuza ambush. This is another case of the cars in the mission being damage-proof before the player interacts with them. If we approach a sentinel on foot, the cartel will abandon the vehicle, and the mission will fail because we didn't lead them to the ambush. However, we can just grab the car now, which is indeed damage-proof. Like the ones we saw earlier, you can't save this property by storing it in your garage. If you try this, it'll revert back to being a normal sentinel, one that takes damage from crashes again. On Espresso To Go, you have to destroy 9 espresso stands that are dotted all over the city. Mostly on Staunton Island, with a couple on Portland and Shoreside Vale. Most people will destroy the first stand that's shown on the map and then search for the others. But here's a hack for you. The timer only starts when you destroy the first stand. So what you could do is go around the city and discover where every single one is, before destroying any of them. They'll all stay highlighted on the map, so once you have them all, you can just go around again and destroy them. Obviously this isn't the fastest method, but it's pretty safe. Also, in the cutscenes for this run of Asuka's missions, she has this black cane that she uses to get information out of Miguel. However, back when she first showed up at the construction site at the end of Grand Theft Aero, this cane was white. The last of this trio of Asuka missions is S.A.M, which stands for Surface to Air Missile. In this mission, we have to blow up a dodo plane that's flying into Francis International Airport and collect its cargo. One thing I wanted to try was seeing how late you could blow up the plane. You're meant to destroy it before it touches the runway, but you can destroy it once it touches down in theory. But check this out, the mission actually fails if you let it get too far down the runway. This mission is also famous for featuring an NPC equipped with a rocket launcher that he cannot use. Some people have said that this is the only time an NPC uses a rocket launcher, but this isn't strictly true. It's possible to see this during the vigilante missions too, and you can also see it if you turn on the Peds Have Weapons and Peds Riot cheats. Anyway, the AI for the cartel in this mission is quite strange. You can walk right up behind them and they don't even realise you're there. If you fire a shot near them, but not at them, they'll just walk off. I actually followed a few of them to see where they went and they ended up butting into this wall down here. One of them was the rocket launcher guy, so I was like, please fire it while your mate is right beside you. And he did. Once Claude ascends the elevator to the tower, the mission Ransom begins, leading straight on from S.A.M. When Claude gets up there, he finds Miguel and Asuka both wasted, presumably by Catalina, and Miguel has a ransom note attached to him. Have you ever wondered what this note actually says? Well, I found the texture for this ransom note among the game's files, and here it is. Sadly, it's too pixelated to read what it says, but it's 3 paragraphs long, way longer than what Catalina has allegedly written on it. And we can also see the same paragraph is repeated 3 times. Well, maybe we'll know what it says one day. Let's take a look at the phone missions now. Bling Bling Scramble is first. Check this out. I put a bomb in this rhino, activated it, then went into the blue marker. When the mission began, the bomb didn't go off. It was cancelled or something, I guess. But I wanted to see what would happen if you blew up at least one of the cars during the cutscene. So then I tried using the blow up all cars cheat during the cutscene, and it caused a soft freeze. So maybe this is another one that I wouldn't recommend trying yourself. When you walk into the blue marker instead of driving into it with a vehicle, you get the same message as you do on Turismo, which we saw earlier in the video. After this we have Uzi Rider, where we need to go to Hepburn Heights and waste some Diablos. I placed 2 rhinos in the way of the perennial that arrives, and amazingly, as it tried to break through, it didn't take any damage. So this seems to be another proofed car that exists within a cutscene. For comparison's sake, here's one that isn't. Here's the pony arriving on the mission Kingdom Come, which we'll discuss shortly. As you can see, it's taking damage from trying to get past the rhino, but the perennial stays intact. On Gangcar Round-up, you have to take a Yakuza Stinger, a Diablo Stallion, and a Mafia Sentinel to a garage in Yardy Turf. In the cutscene, King Courtney says that they need these cars so they can hit any gang in Liberty. However, you don't have to get a Triad Fish Van, a Cartel Cruiser, or a Hood's Rumpo XL. So they don't have enough to hit every gang in Liberty. In terms of the Mafia Sentinel, you can take a parked one from Salvatore's mansion. If you go around the back of the Super Save and around the back of this row of houses, you can avoid the Mafia. And then you can just take the Sentinel down past 8 Balls and behind the Crusher, and then straight down to the tunnel. You can also find a parked Yakuza Stinger near the casino. There are no parked Diablo Stallions on the game though, at least to my knowledge. One thing I noticed was that each car has to be very much in the garage for it to count. Even if it looks like it's far enough in, it probably isn't. You also don't seem to be able to move the car on foot when it's in there, which is weird. What happens if you try to deliver a car that's not on the list? Well, you don't get any additional error messages or anything. Look guys, I'm just trying to help you hit any gang in Liberty here. What if you take a car that's on the list to the garage, but put another car in there as well? And it won't accept it. Come on garage, there's a Yakuza Stinger in there, that's what you asked for. On a final note, if you get into a car that you've already delivered, you'll get a message saying that you've already boosted that gang car. And here we are at Kingdom Come. When you reach this Esperanto, you'll find that Catalina has left you a note, and you have been betrayed by the Yardies. So that's another gang that now attacks you. Anyway, this is one of 2 occasions where Catalina seemingly uses an incorrect word. She says besos y fuderes. Now, besos means kisses in Spanish, but the word fuderes does not exist in Spanish to my knowledge. Instead, fuder is a Portuguese word, which means fuck. So she's saying kisses and fucks in a mixture of Spanish and Portuguese. Also, a good tactic for this mission is to do what I'm doing here. Blow up one of the vans as quickly as you can, then ascend to this platform and take down the other ponies and madmen from here. The other time that Catalina uses an incorrect word is on the final mission, the exchange. She says, "You are muy pequeñito." I think she's trying to say, "You are very small." But in my limited knowledge of Spanish, it's more likely that it should be, muy pequeño. It could be that it means tiny, or teeny tiny, but I'm not too sure. Anyway, the subtitles get it completely wrong. It says muy pequeño, which looks more like an Italian word than Spanish. Staunton Island is the only island to have 2 off-road missions. The first is a ride in the park, which has the fewest checkpoints to collect out of all the off-road missions, with 12. During this mission, there are 3 checkpoints which look like you have to jump out of the park to reach them. However, this is not the case. You can just drive underneath them and you'll collect them all. Perfect. Also, this mission makes me hate the Landstalker even more than I already do. It's just so easy to roll this thing. The other off-road mission is Multistorey Mayhem. This one is different to the others as you don't simply get into a car and begin the mission. What you have to do is take a stallion to this entrance of the car park, then get out and back in, and the mission will trigger. My fact for this mission is, how the heck is anyone supposed to know to do this? Well, I remember simply finding out from my friends at school talking about it. But then, how did they know about it? You could look online, but not everyone had access to a computer back then, if you can believe that. So I think the most likely answer is the strategy guide. This lists every mission and how to trigger them, including Multistorey Mayhem. There is also one RC mission on this island, which is Casino Calamity. The only RC mission whose title doesn't reference the vehicle you need to blow up, or the gang it belongs to. Diablo Destruction refers to the Diablos and the Diablo Stallion. Mafia Massacre refers to the Mafia and the Mafia Sentinel. And Rumpo Rampage refers to the Hood's Rumpo XL, that the Jacks and Nines drive. A good tactic for this mission, as well as the other RC missions, is to collect a bunch of Yakuza stingers before you begin the mission. As we saw before, parked cars count towards your score. So in this case, I've got 3 lined up before the mission even starts. There's only one storyline mission to start on Shoreside Vale, and that is the exchange. Firstly, I had to check out one thing that other people had been showcasing in their videos. And that is, when the mission starts after the cutscene, there's a wasted cartel gang member on the floor. The one that Claude punched. However, he's actually there from the start of the cutscene. You could see him right here. Also, you're meant to go through the main gates to trigger the next cutscene where Catalina flies off in the helicopter. However, you can trigger this cutscene from within the boundaries of the mansion just by going up here. There's also another trick I wanted to try. Driving up the dam. To do this, get a stinger and head to the bottom of the dam. After a couple of attempts, you can drive up it and get right to the spot where Maria is being held hostage, except she hasn't spawned in yet. You can even go right up to the helicopter, which isn't solid aside from a small bit in the middle. It actually looks like you can move it a little bit with a car. To get all the cartel to spawn, we have to go down the steps and back along the dam a bit. Then we get the cutscene where Catalina flies off in the heli. Now, let's try to get back and rescue Maria without wasting all these cartel guys. If we go ahead and finish the mission without wasting them all, they're all still there in the cutscene. Well, except for one guy that's stationed at the top of the staircase that Claude and Maria walk up during the end cutscene. He is automatically wasted, likely to prevent him getting in the way of the scene. But check this out, when Claude walks past this guy in the cutscene, he appears to pick up the M16 that this guy drops. It could just be that it disappeared at the same time as Claude walked past, as weapon pickups do disappear after some time if Claude doesn't interact with them. But I tried it again and I got the same result. So, I can't say I'm sure on this, but it looked as if Claude was interacting with the weapon pickup during the cutscene. Now, let's take a look at the payphone missions in Shoreside Vale, beginning with Uzi Money. What you're supposed to do in this mission is waste some purple 9s by drive-by only. So if you waste them via any other method, in theory, that won't count. However, we saw in my original video that you can also use the turret on the Rhino to count towards the total as well. So I thought, surely there's got to be something else that counts, right? I wondered if blowing up a car and taking a purple 9 with it would count. So let's see what happens. The car's on fire and ready to explode. Keep your eye on the counter, and no, it doesn't count, sadly. Okay, next idea. Use the water cannon on the fire truck to knock the 9s into the water. I tried this on a couple of groups of people and sadly this did not work either. Okay, how about the guns on the Predator, the police boat? So I took a Predator from the spawn point at the airport and beached it right here. I fired the guns at some 9s that walked past, and no, this didn't work either. I actually felt quite sure that this would work, but well, Rockstar's devs had somehow considered this approach. Okay, how about a car bomb? Each island has a different type of bomb that you can place in a car. On Portland, the bomb is triggered when the engine is started, like on Mike Lip's last lunch. On Staunton Island, it's a bomb on a timer, like on Kanbu Bust Out and Blowfish. On Shoreside Vale, it's also a remote bomb, but it's activated by a detonator rather than a timer, like on I Scream You Scream. I tried the Shoreside one first, but totally overlooked the fact that you can't change weapons on this mission, so you're locked to the Uzi. Therefore, you can't switch to the detonator. So let's try the Staunton bomb. We'll activate it in the car, then get out and move to a safe distance. Here comes a 9. Will it count? Keep your eye on the counter, and yes, it counts. Of course, this is a pretty useless tactic, but it's amazing that it works anyway. Toyminator is the second mission for D-Ice, where we have to destroy 3 Securicars using the RC Bandit. In my original video, we looked at how you can save the RC Bandit to your garage by exploding it on the exact same frame as the garage door closes. However, there is something else we can do with the RC Bandit too. Using the same method, if you get into the toys van and get out of it very quickly, the mission will fail, but you'll still be in control of the RC Bandit. Then it's a matter of walking it to your safe house. This time, we're not going to put it in the garage. We're just going to park it here. Now what we need to do is grab another car. The FBI car that I took from a drop in the ocean will do nicely. Let's park it here, then reposition the RC Bandit so that it's underneath the vehicle. From there, if we try and get into the FBI car from the front or the back, just sometimes we'll actually be warped onto the RC Bandit instead. Now we're actually driving the RC Bandit. I love how the name of the vehicle, RC Bandit, even shows up in the bottom right corner. Rick to Blow sees us take D-Ice's Infernus to a garage in St. Mark's to have the bomb defused. When you take the Infernus back to its parking spot near your safe house, by the way, this is almost the same location as the toys van from the previous mission, you're told to get out of the vehicle, at which point the mission will pass. The doors of the Infernus will now be locked, so we can do what we did with the Sentinel at Bitchin' Dog Food earlier in the video. Get out and leave a door open so we can get back in. Again, it's funny to see the gang members and cops try and get in. We can use this car in the following mission, Bullion Run, where we're collecting pieces of bullion and taking them to a nearby garage. However, every piece of bullion you collect makes your car heavier and slower. Your wanted level increases as well. So when you're going slowly and the cops are after you, it's nice to know they can't open your doors. Also, did you know that it's possible to collect all the bullion you need to pass the mission in one go? I always used to do 2 trips, but here you go, all in one with this Infernus. Generally, I have heard that heavier cars are less affected by the weight of the bullion, so something like a Securicar would probably be a pretty good pick for this. Also, I found that the Patriot was pretty good too, as it has good traction. Lastly, did you know that the bullion only appears when you get into a vehicle? Therefore, if you run all the way to the location where the bullion spawns, then get in a vehicle, you'll see all the bullion appear around you. The final mission for D-Ice is Rumble, which I actually forgot to include in my original video. Oops, well, hopefully this makes up for it. Okay, during this mission, you have to go and talk to D-Ice's younger brother. Then fight a bunch of purple 9s using only a baseball bat. Right, well, what can we say about this one? Probably that D-Ice's brother is perhaps the most useless NPC out of any mission. His only real role in this mission is that you need to talk to him to progress it. He gives you a baseball bat, which is already available at your safe house a few feet away, and you don't even have to take him with you to the location of the fight. You can just leave him here if you want. Again, I'm using D-Ice's Infernus here, so he can't even get in. Okay, let's head to the park, and hang on, wait a minute. Excuse me, what are you doing? I didn't even know that was possible. At least not in that spot. Oh look, a thief is trying to steal my locked doors Infernus. Smart guy. Yeah, okay, this guy's having some issues. I think we should probably just leave him to it. You're not going to get any fares like that, mate. Okay, see you later. Also, if you don't let D-Ice's brother in your car, move so far away from him, then go back, he just refuses to get in the car now. Okay, suit yourself. You can even waste him, and the mission won't fail. So, okay, fine, you can come and join me on the mission. But you're not allowed in the car. You have to walk alongside it, trying to open the door every second. And finally, according to GT Fandom, D-Ice's brother's attacks do 0 damage to the purple 9s. Wow. Well, at least he's a distraction for them. Rumpo Rampage is the only RC car mission on Shoreside Vale, and it's located close to where we began the Toyminator mission earlier. With the RC side missions, we saw that your prize money is dependent on the number of cars you destroy. But in addition to this, you can only earn more money from this side mission again after passing it by beating your previous record. Therefore, if you wanted to earn more money from the RC missions like Rumpo Rampage, you could intentionally get a low score like I'm doing here, then repeat the mission and beat your score by 1 each time. There's an import-export garage in Shoreside Vale as well as the one in Portland. Perhaps the most interesting vehicle on this list is the BF Injection. There's only one place it spawns, and that is outside Misty's apartment block in Hepburn Heights, between the hours of 6 PM and midnight. This is perhaps inferring that Joey is visiting Misty, as Joey has a BF Injection in his garage, which is visible during the cutscenes of all his missions. Also on these import-export garages, you can actually deliver vehicles during missions. If you deliver a random car during a mission, then it works normally. However, if you try to deliver a car that's integral to the mission, the game will say, "Come back when you're not so busy." On the import-export garage car list in Shoreside Vale, the Manana is present. I wanted to see what would happen if I took the corpse Manana from Dead Skunk in the trunk to this garage. I thought it might not accept it because, as I said earlier, the game treats these two Mananas as separate cars. But no, it actually did accept it. Just a couple of bits left to wrap up now, starting with the paramedic missions. When you drop a patient off at the hospital, they don't even go towards the doors. They actually walk away from the hospital. Go and get some treatment, you're bleeding. During the firefighter missions, you can encounter vehicles outside the areas where they would usually spawn. For example, here's a Yardi Lobo in Pike Creek. This can be useful for acquiring rare vehicles for the import-export garages. There are a couple of useful glitches you can do with taxi missions. Firstly, if you press and hold R3 to start the taxi side mission, then get out of the taxi and into another car, then release R3, you can now do a taxi mission in any car you like. Also, you can pick a passenger up then head down to the car crusher. Block the driver's side door, hold R3, then get out of the vehicle. Wait for the magnet to attach, then get back in, and once you're fully inside, you can now release R3. You have now made a ghost car and you can go through any building or object you like. Also, if you put this car in your garage, it will become damage proof. During the taxi missions, you'll be asked to drop pedestrians off all over town. One interesting thing is that When a ped wants to go to the red light district, in the subtitles, this area will simply be referred to as red light, rather than its full name. This is likely taken from the internal file name for the district. Also on Staunton Island, there's this building here, which according to the game's manual is City Hall. However, during the taxi missions, it's actually referred to as the museum, hinting at a change of use during development, or maybe just a building with a dual use. A good mission hack for the vigilante side mission is to pause the game whenever you're close to one of the fugitives. This will make them get out of their vehicle, making them much easier to take out. Like the firefighter missions, the vigilante missions offer good opportunities to access rare vehicles, like the cheetah here on Portland. And as we saw earlier, you can even encounter vehicles like the Mr. Whoopie, which is the rarest traffic car in the game. Okay, the emergency vehicle crane now. There's a glitch we can perform with this crane that works in a similar way to the ghost car glitch you can perform with the taxi missions. To do the glitch though, we need to be on a mission with a scripted passenger, like Kanbu Bust Out or Liberator. We need to head to the crane and use the Yankee that's parked here to block the driver's side door of our Rhino. And we need to park it at the edge of the pickup zone for the crane. Then we need to take our Rhino and ensure that both doors have been knocked off. This is important, and we need to park it so that the driver's side door is indeed blocked. When we get out, the crane will come down, and if we spam triangle really fast, our passenger will get back in first. Then we can pull him out and effectively steal the vehicle, which cancels the crane and creates a ghost Rhino. Phew, well, that all happened pretty quickly. If we parked the Yankee and the Rhino closer to the middle of the pickup zone, the crane would attach too quickly for us to be able to steal the Rhino back before it properly connects. Okay, from here we can even place a bomb inside the Rhino. Usually the bomb shop on Staunton Island is the only one with a wide enough entrance to get the Rhino in. But when it's a ghost Rhino, we can now fit it into the Portland bomb shop too. And can we even fit it in the Shoreside Vale bomb shop? It has the smallest entrance of all three, and yes, just. We can even fit a Shoreside Vale bomb to this Rhino now. And like the other ghost car glitch, we can save this in our garage. However, the Rhino will never gain the damage-proof property for some reason. And with that, I think that's everything covered. Or at least, I hope it is. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. It took a long time to make, and hopefully you might have even learned something new. Thanks for watching.